Okay.
So we are live.
So good evening, everybody. Today we will be discussing about the visual outcomes in diabetic macular edema, assessing the efficacy of Q16 aflibercept injections, meaning that is 16 weeks intervals aflibercept injection. That may be the longest interval between injections in some cases. Next, next slide. So these are routine things. We are coming to this slide. Next. So this is the perhaps previously we have discussed this slide. So again we can talk about that. That there is a huge load of diabetes mellitus as we all know, and its eye-related effects globally. So if we look we can see that the burden is around 74% increase within the next 25 years or so in Southeast Asia, including India, and it will be lowest in Europe, but in the highest in Africa. Overall, the global burden will be around 51% of increase in 25 years interval, expecting around 2045. So we need to worry and need to take action to prevent diabetes-related eye complications. Next. So this is graphically representing these. These are the burdens. These are the burdens. So what was 463 millions globally in 2020, and it is expected to rise to about 578 millions globally, and expected to rise to about 700 millions. There is almost 45% diabetic eye-related complications may occur in the coming 25 years or so. Next. So vision loss is the most feared complication for patients with diabetes mellitus. As we all know, these some portions, some regions in our system is of end arterial system. So eye is one of them. That are like kidney and the heart and the eye. So as we can see from this diagram or for the pictorial view, that about 50% of patients will come up with the eye-related complications, and next comes the cardiac complications. That is roughly around 21%, and this is a US survey. And then next comes the kidney-related renal complications, and then circulatory and foot and leg related and others. So the global cost of diabetes are expected to increase substantially in the coming 5 years or so. These are to represent the burden of the disease, the burden of eye complications, and the sustainable approaches that we can take into. Next. So coming to the treatment part, the beginning part, the initial. So we are considering with the lines of improvement. That if there is a one line of improvement in the ETDRS chart, it may help patients read a newspaper or can drive at night under difficult conditions. And if he or she gains two lines, that may improve his or her near vision tasks such as cooking or using tools, or increase patient's ability to work and perform role specific functions. And if it is gaining three lines, it may also improve his or her color vision perception. So regaining or maintaining that vision is essential, and with anti-VEGF injections, we can achieve this by giving proper intervals and proper anti-VEGFs. Next page. So the efficacy of aflibercept treatment is in DME is supported by evidence of robust clinical trials. Many of us know about these trials, the VIVID and VISTA trials. The difference is that the VISTA trial was conducted in United States and the VIVID trial was conducted in Europe, Japan and Australia. And both of them have found similar vision change-related defects, that mean visual changes that occur with time, 52 weeks or 1 year being the initial endpoint. And another clinical trial is DRCR.NET Protocol T, that is of 2 years. Here they compare the mean number of aflibercept injections in year 1 and then in year 2. These are comparable, that is 12.3, as you can see from the graphs. These are 12.3 in year 1 and 12.8 in year 2. So DRCR is a diabetic research clinical trial group that is mainly based in United States and is funded by National Eye Institute. Next. So that is an interesting study. If we conduct the VISTA trial, that is of 2 years, and if it is extended, what it happens from the VISTA? This is a different trial. That is an endurance trial where patients from VISTA maintain visual acuity gains for 5 years, a very long period, with a mean of 3.4 injections in year 5. There is, from the graph, it is interesting to note that after 2 years, and the number of injections is not much, and at 3 year follow up, it is reduced down to average 4.5 injections with a baseline visual acuity of 69.6, that is about 70, and all in 80 DRS letters. And if it is followed up from 4 year to 5 year, then the burden of injection is even more decreased, and it is coming on an average to 3.4 injections. That is so. If we conduct the trial, then we will get the much less load of the injection, and these all trials are conducted with the aflibercept injection, or commonly known as Eylea. Next. So yes, so these are international recommendations, meaning mostly from EURETINA guidelines. That international recommendations and guidelines recommend the first line use of aflibercept in patients with BCVA, best corrected visual acuity, less than 69 letters. That is less than 20 by 40 vision. So aflibercept is the drug of choice in diabetic macular edema and with baseline BCVA below 69 letters. In patients with poor visual acuity particularly, and in practical cases you may see also, while giving the loading doses and extending the treatment, that in cases where the vision, particularly baseline vision, is particularly low, then worse than 6 by 12 or so, then aflibercept works superiorly over other anti-VEGF injections. So superiority of aflibercept was noted in the group participants with worse baseline visual acuity. This superiority of aflibercept at year 2 with gains of 18.1 letters in ETDRS chart in aflibercept, whereas it is in case of bevacizumab not much used nowadays. It was 13.3 and 16.1 letters in case of ranibizumab group at the end of 2 years. So there is a possible difference in drug efficacy in patients with diabetic macular edema to the disadvantage of bevacizumab. Bevacizumab particularly is not much used in our country. Maybe in some foreign countries it is still in use. So bevacizumab, a visual acuity of less than, particularly when it is less than 20 by 50 visual acuity. Next, please. So aflibercept is recognized as the standard of care in diabetic macular edema and is being used in 4 DRCR retina. DRCR meaning I told some time ago the Diabetic Research Clinical Diabetic Retinopathy Clinical Research Group, DRCR Retina Network protocols evaluating anti-VEGFs in diabetic macular edema and diabetic retinopathy. There are so many protocols like Protocol W, where it is intravitreal anti-VEGF treatment for prevention of vision-threatening diabetic retinopathy, or Protocol AB, or Protocol AC, Protocol V. Protocol V is a particular importance because it is involved in DME but with good visual acuity. And the Protocol T, as we all know, the comparative effectiveness study of intravitreal aflibercept, bevacizumab, and ranibizumab. That is a very good and interesting study, that DRCR.net Protocol T. Next. So this is another interesting study conducted, that is called Violet study. That is after initial treatment with aflibercept for year one. Suppose you are giving the loading dose. After the loading dose, you will either follow a fixed dosing pattern, or you follow a pro-rata pattern, or you may follow a 8 weekly interval aflibercept. So what happens here? The patients are randomized. It is the phase 3B trial, and patients are randomized into three groups. There is one receiving 8 weekly aflibercept, one receiving eight weekly, but not fixed dosing pattern. It is treat and extend pattern, and another is pro-rata, means when the patient needs the injection. So almost we can see that almost equivalent number of patients are involved in the three groups. And what is the primary endpoint? The primary endpoint is at 52 weeks, where we can compare the baseline visual acuity with the visual acuity and the end of 1 year or week 52. And what are the secondary endpoints? That is a change in visual acuity from baseline to week 100, meaning almost 2 years. And also in case of this, there is central retinal thickness from baseline to week 52, meaning at 1 year central retinal thickness change. So if we continue after robust treatment of 1 year, and we continue the treatment till week 100, meaning up to 2 years, so we can see the difference. The what are the number of injections patient received, and what is the improvement in the visual acuity, and what is the change in the central retinal thickness. Next. One thing is that this slide is also with the Violet. One thing is that for these patients, what we saw in the previous slide, come from the Aqua study. And that is a single arm study. There is phase 4 single arm study, from where the patients are taken, and then the patients being randomized, and these randomized patterns are divided into three classes, and all total around about 458 or something like that patients. So here it is mentioned also. If we look closely, that the mean standard deviation baseline in BCVA Aqua is ETDRS letters 62.2 rise, with aflibercept 2qubit, meaning that 8 weekly aflibercept, the number of patients being 15, and then not 15, 152, sorry, aflibercept pro-rata basis, the number of patients enrolled is 153. So what are the things we look for? These are mean baseline visual acuity, mean change in visual BCVA, Violet study, and ETDRS. Patients who gain greater than 10 letters, mean number of injections, and mean number of clinic. Next. So this is a separate study, the Beam study, that evaluated the outcome of 2 year proactive treatment and treat and extend regime with aflibercept for patients with diabetic macular edema. This is a prospective trial, different trial, multi-center single-arm study assessing efficacy of treat and extend regime. That is, duration of injection is gradually increasing with aflibercept in patients with diabetic macular edema over 104 weeks. meaning that is patients who have been treated for more than 2 years. Then aflibercept dosing is 4 weekly for 5 months, followed by individualized treat and extend regime. Means individualized means suppose you can give one patient at 4 weeks interval, you can give patient one injection at 5 weeks interval, you may give in 6 weeks interval also. So mean treatment interval is 4 weeks, max treatment interval is 12 weeks with the 2 week interval extensions. The primary endpoint at 2 years and secondary endpoint change in visual acuity, baseline visual acuity to at 52 weeks or 1 year. Next. So this is continuing with the BPM study. If we continue with the treat and extend trial with aflibercept initiated in year 1 can provide clinically meaningful visual outcomes over 2 years. So with the bar diagram, we can see that the different number of patients involved at the baseline at the year 1 and the year 2 and the mean number of injections at year 1 and year 2. If we look, we can see that at the year 1, the mean number of injection was 8.5, whereas in the year 2, it was 3.9. So, approximately 35% of patients gained greater than or 15 letters at the year 2. 57% of patients were on more than 12 weekly treatment intervals at the end of year 2. Next. So this is a study that deals with mainly that aflibercept injection giving around 16 weeks of intervals. The treat and extend therapy conducted by Hirano et al. And aflibercept in patients was all patients are over DME over more than 2 years. This is a prospective trial, multi-center, open-label, single-arm study assessing efficacy of treat and extend regime with aflibercept in patients with DME over 2 years. So after 5 months of treatment, patients are individualized. As we told earlier, that primary endpoint, these are two things that BCVA and CST is the most important from baseline to year 2. And the year 2 is the primary endpoint and the minimum interval is 4 weeks, but the max interval we can take is 16 weeks with the 4 week interval extensions, meaning 12 to 20 weeks of interval. Secondary endpoint is mean injection number, treatment interval distribution, and uh, uh, and year by treatment interval distribution and then for extensions by year 2. Next. So this is we are continuing with the Hirano study. The majority of patients with DME achieved 16 week of treatment intervals with an individualized treat and extend regime. Every patient is individualized. We can give according to need, and gradually the interval is extending, and as we told in the previous slide, that it may vary from maximum 12 to 20 weeks, with the mean period being 16 weeks intervals. Treat and extend regime with aflibercept initiated in year 1. The main change in BCVA from baseline to year 1 was 6.1 ETDRS letters. Mean number of injections from baseline to year 2 is 11.4, and patients completing the second year follow-up is 30. About the 45 patients, the 30 that means that 75% of patients. So 16 weekly interval treatment, almost 67% of patients were on 16 weeks of treatment intervals at the end of year 2. Next. So another trial is J trial, that is evaluate the efficacy of a proactive treat and extend regime with aflibercept for patients with DME. What is the difference? There is a phase 3B study, and there is patients with DME across 5 study sites in Taiwan. Uh, aflibercept, for the here aflibercept injection is given 4 weekly for 5 months, followed by individualized treat and extend. The primary endpoint of this study being change in visual acuity ETDR status from baseline at the week 52, and the secondary endpoint is mean change in central retinal thickness from baseline proportion with dry retina at weeks 22, that is 5 months, and at week 52, that is at 1 year. Next. So continuing with the JET study.
Hello.
Hello. The person you are speaking with. Continuing with the JET study, there is aflibercept treat and extend initiated after 5 monthly loading doses provided significant visual acuity improvements in patients with DME. So mean baseline visual acuity at baseline and week 52, 58.3% and 66.6% at week 52. So almost 90% of patients at the last injection interval of 12 weeks, n is equal to 40, means 40 patients, and the interval 8 weeks in case of 2 patients and 4-week intervals in case of 3 patients. So what we get is mean number of injections over 52 weeks is averaging 7.7. Proportion of patients who reach stability at week 20 and could begin interval extension is 87%, and proportion of patients with a dry retina at week 52, that is at 1 year, is about 51%. And next. These are done, I think. In prospective clinical trials, the majority of patient DME achieved more or equivalent to 12 weekly treatment intervals. That is, gradually the interval is extending in case of aflibercept after 2 years of proactive treat and extend regime with aflibercept. This is shown in BBIM study. Left hand side is BBIM study and right hand side is Hirano study, and they compare the baseline visual acuity BCVA at baseline and year 2 in both the cases. In case of BBIM study, that 9.4 letters are improved up to year 2, and in case of Hirano study, at the end of year 2, the improvement is plus almost 6.1 letters, but we can say the 6 letters in ETDRS chart. Next. So in summary, aflibercept can achieve clinically meaningful visual gains or maintain vision regardless of the baseline vision, and is a treatment of choice for patients with baseline visual acuity less than 69 letters. Early intensive treatment followed by treat and extend regime in DME can also maintain vision with reduced burden to patient and also to clinic. Aflibercept is the only bispecific VEGF fusion protein, that is, it is a fusion protein where the VEGF R1 and VEGF R2 are bound to IgG1 fraction, IgG1 fraction of Fc fragment. Early intensive treatment of DME may maximize vision gains in the first year, and these can be maintained in the long term with a reduced treatment burden, as we have seen in different studies. With proactive individualized dosing, patients can maintain visual acuity gains with a reduced treatment burden after year 1 with aflibercept. So, overall, early treatment with diabetic macular edema with good systemic control of diabetes, meaning the fasting maybe 90 to 100 and HbA1c meaning less than 6.5, with a good systemic control of diabetes and regular follow-up, patients can maintain peaceful vision for a long period of time. So emerging real-world studies in DME have shown that aflibercept leads to good visual and anatomical outcomes, meaning the change or reduction in central retinal thickness, and in clinical practice, these are consistent with that reported in clinical trials. Next. So this is the old slide. We can skip the slide. We can skip.
I think we. So I think that was the summary, sir.
This is the summary. Yeah, right. So can we conclude?
Yeah, we can conclude, and
We
we
can
can.
conclude. So for general information, that the afterburst works well in different studies, as we already see.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you for
Thank you.
participating. Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Team, tech team. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
we can conclude the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
sir. We
We
are
wrap
concluding the. I have an ending session now, sir. Okay.